Hello, fellow aviators. Welcome to JPLA Aviation, where leadership and aviation take off. I just recently did a mock oral check ride for the instrument rating with Derek Piva, that guy who did 4 check rides in 5 weeks. Yeah, that guy. So there was a lot to learn. The interview was about 2.5. Actually, my interview for the oral part of this was 2.5 hours long, and it was rich with information. I put in the comments down below what the DPE sent me on my check ride. He gave me exactly the approaches I was going to fly, and he gave me the route and all the details that I needed for my cross country. We talk about all of that and more, including regulations, airspace, the legends as well, any IFR type issues, technical, pedostatic system problems, all this good stuff that you guys are going to learn for your IFR rating. We discuss all of that in this 2.5 hour long mock oral check ride with Derek Piva. So make sure you guys like and subscribe if you get any value out of this. Make sure to listen on Spotify as well, and feel free to leave a comment below, shoot me an email to let me know what you guys want to hear more of, and I'm hopefully going to be putting out 3 to 4 of these mock oral instrument check rides for you guys, because my biggest thing is I want to be able to listen and learn while I'm doing other stuff. So enjoy this mock oral check ride, guys. JPL Aviation is where leadership and aviation take off.
What class of medical do you currently hold?
I currently hold a first class medical.
First class medical. Okay, so tell me more about the different types of medicals and the validity, let's tell me more about the medical requirements for you as a private pilot with an instrument rating.
So private pilot with instrument rating, I could hold a third class medical and still be able to fly, but I currently have a first class medical, and the first class medical will last me a year.
Okay, what's the difference between your first and your second class?
The first and second class is, the first one gives you airline transport privileges, and the second class you can still legally fly and get paid.
Okay, what about basic med? What can you tell me about basic med?
Basic med is from Part 68, and it's after July of 2006 is when you could apply for basic med, assuming you held a medical certificate that was valid before that date. And it allows you to fly with no more than 5 passengers. You can't have a certificated takeoff weight of more than 6,000 pounds. And yeah, that's trying to think of what else. Part 68 basic med. It's for people that got their medicals taken away, or just fell out of expiration, basically.
Okay, so there's two more things that you are missing there. Like with the basic med, we like to say that you have the 6 sort of like requirements, the 6 for basic med. So, you did mention that you must have held a certificate after 2006, not before. Then you mentioned that basically you cannot have more than 6 people in the aircraft, so yourself plus 5 passengers. You also mentioned that we gotta be below 6,000 pounds, but there are 2 other things that we are missing from basic med.
Okay, 2 other things that we're missing would be, I can go to Part 68 and look. They would be Part 67, Part 68. Oh, you have to take a comprehensive medical examination, and there's also an education course that you have to take as well.
Okay. What else?
Medical examination checklist, special issuance process, authority to require additional information, medical requirements, certification. You I concur to checklist 68.7. There's a special issuance process for people who have certain disorders. They could also apply for this, including cardiovascular and mental health conditions.
Now you're talking about a special issuance, but not necessarily about details from a basic med. Cool. You can take your time and look it up, the information. That's no problem.
So I have the 5 passengers, 2006, 6,000 pounds. I'm assuming the medical education course is one?
Yes. Okay, so how often do you need to do the medical evaluation, and once, let's say, so your class, so let's go, you're a private pilot, so you don't need your first class and you also don't need your second class. So you can just fly on a third class. How long is the third class valid for?
So if I just have the third class, it would be 5 years.
5 years, okay. So then the whole idea with basic med is, after your 5 years, you know, you don't want to go to an AME and go through the whole process, and you know, you're not flying very fast airplanes. So then you can just go online and you can go to your primary care provider, you know, so any doctor, they can go through the process with you. So you need to be seen by a doctor every 4 years, but every 2 years you need to take a course online, okay, and do a quiz and print the certificate, and you're going to be carrying that with you.
So every 2 years for the course?
So every 2 years for the course, all right? And you need to see your primary care provider every 4 years. The other restrictions that you have is you cannot fly in Class Alpha, Class A airspace, and you cannot fly faster than 250 knots. The other restriction that you have is it's only valid within the contiguous 48 states. So you can only use within the United States. So certain countries will also accept. Mexico is also accepting now basic med. Canada, I don't think so. So yes, so those are your restrictions. So you're restricted to 6,000 pounds. You're restricted to 6 people on board, including yourself. You are restricted to 250 knots. You are restricted to not flying above 17,999 feet. You are restricted to, what was the other one that I mentioned? 250 knots, 6 passengers. Yeah, and within the continental United States, and also redoing the examination. So don't get that confused with your special issuance, because that's like a different beast on its own. And don't go down that path, because you're just gonna start digging yourself like a hole there. Okay, so now let's just go. So this whole thing, it's not gonna be basically about asking you questions. There is, in a way, no right or wrong. We're just gonna throw some scenarios here. So let's just assume that you have your instrument rating. At what point do you need your instrument rating?
I need my instrument rating if I'm flying in Class A airspace. I need it in special VFR at night. I need it when I am entering controlled airspace under IFR conditions. I need it when I am on an IFR flight plan.
Okay, perfect. So what are the logging requirements for your instrument rating flights?
Logging requirements?
Yes, so what do you need to log for all of these flights? What are you required?
Well, if I'm using it to go towards a rating, then I would have to log, but technically I don't have to log any flights if I didn't want to.
Are you sure about that?
For logging instrument flights, like in my logbook?
Yes. What do you need to log? What are the requirements, the minimum flights that you need to log on your logbook?
Oh, you're talking about my currency and maintaining that?
Yes, sure. We can go down that path.
So in order to maintain my currency as an IFR pilot, I'd have to log. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'd have to log 6-inch. I'd have to log tracking and holding, radials, and I'd have to do holding procedures, and I'd have to have 6 instrument approaches within the preceding 6 calendar months.
Okay, so that's good. So we're talking here more about our currency. So legally, you're not required to log anything on your logbook, but the things that you do need to log are going to be things that can prove that you're current. Okay, so in this case, is the bare minimum that you would log on your logbook would be, you know, your 6 instrument approaches within the preceding 6 months. So you did mention to me that you need to have your 6 approaches with holding, intercepting, and tracking, which is good. And at what point can we actually log an approach? When is an approach logged?
When you when is approach loggable? Approach is loggable when you track the course all the way down to the ground.
Well, so let's just say, you know, you have your instrument rating, and then we're going to be shooting this ILS that will take us 200 feet from the ground, right? But the ceiling is at 800. How are we going to stay current if, you know, like the ceiling is higher than the minimums?
Higher than the minimums? That's a good question. Kind of stuck on this one. I would go to part 91 for, actually no, it'd be part 61. I'm blanking on this one a little bit, but I'm guessing it would have to do something with going all the way down to having the airport runway environment in sight, or
but if the ceiling is at 800 feet, you should already have that airport in sight, right? So let's say we're coming from what people call the stoop, right? So we are in IMC and we're coming, and then as we go down, we clear from the crowds, 800 feet, we have the runway in sight, and at that point, you know, tower tells you, you know, proceed to the visual. You know, so how are you going to be able to stay current if, let's say, for the most part of our flying, if the ceilings are going to be higher or greater than minimums? So what are you going to do to be current and to be able to log those 6 instrument approaches?
Log those 6 instrument approaches. That would be, I'm blanking on this one. So I go to 61 157, I think is the reference. Training requirements are plan, flight proficiency, areas of operation, nautical experience, category rating, frequency checks with the engine, nautical experience, category rating, class rating. We go to, I know this one. Instrument, part 61, 57. Flight review, flight pilot command, instrument experience, flight experience, slow procedures, 6 instrument approaches, slow procedures, station training device, 2 hours instrument experience. That's 6157. Training courses through flight simulator procedures. I'm blanking on this one. Proficiency check. Levels 61, 65. 61. Check 61, 64, 65. That's the requirements. Recognition. Full flight simulators. 1.2. Like 60, 133. I'll be the other one. 31, 132. 130. No. 61, 57. Takeoff and landing experience, recent flight experience, pilot command. First missile, category, full stop, I'm going to open. I'm gonna go with I'm blanking on this one.
Okay, so that's pretty easy. So we can just go, let's go and have a look at this right here. All right, so we want to have a look at, it's basically here, 6157, right? So basically you can go up with with a safety pilot and you're under the foggles, right? So if you go with a safety pilot, you're going to be able to go and log those because you're going to be on the VFR under the foggles, and you're going all the way to your minimums, and then you can log, and then your safety pilot will go and sign on your logbook. Okay, so what are the requirements for someone to be a safety pilot?
I'm going to pause you for a second. You were asking, I think I was getting your question wrong. You were asking if I'm flying and I go and I'm trying to maintain my currency and I'm flying on the IFR approach and the ceilings are so low that I can't, when I'm coming in, I'm not
No,
landing.
the ceilings are higher.
I think I was messing up the question. I was thinking it was that you were talking about when I'm coming in, what determines that I shot the approach. Like say if I was flying by myself and I was coming in and I didn't land, at what point could I count it as logging it?
Yes, so for example, my example, I said that your ILS minimums is 200 feet above the runway touchdown zone, right? So 200 feet from the threshold.
Yeah.
But your ceiling's at 800.
Oh,
right? So
I was messing that up. I was thinking you were asking me at what point could I still count it as instrument time, and I thought the ceilings were like lower where you're coming down, you couldn't see it. Okay, that makes more sense.
No. Well, if the ceilings are below than the minimums, then at that point you're going to be going missed.
Just flying in the soup. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Then I would say for sure you need a safety pilot to write down that you shot the approach and there's a validation system in place.
Okay, and then so now that you sort of understand the question, what about if you're just flying by yourself? At what point can you legally, log that approach on your logbook? What do you need to do? Like, what conditions need to exist in order for that approach to count as an approach?
You'd have to be able to land at the airport. You'd have to have VFR from a stabilized approach. VFR stabilized approach all the way down and terminate the approach.
No. So we're talking about IFR. So let's say you need to have your 6 different types of approach, right, on your 6 months. So with your tracking, intercepting, but we're just talking about approaches here. So basically, let's just say every single time that you go flying, we plan to shoot the approach, and then as we're getting close to it, if it's like in a controlled place, tower just go like proceed to the visual, because it's visual conditions. Or if we're flying to an uncontrolled airport, it's like, well, we're not really shooting that approach because we have the airport in sight. Yeah. So you actually need to be able to cross the final approach fix and still be in IMC.
Okay, so final approach fixed IMC.
Yeah, so if you are past the final approach fix, and if you have the runway in sight, up to that point, then you can log that flight. That was like what my DP told me, But you're going to hear some other people saying like, oh, you need to go down to minimums. That doesn't really make much sense, because if you're going to be going to minimums, that's like you're getting very, very low.
So what would be the reference for that?
The reference for that, I'll look it up. It's going to be on 6157 Part C, and then that should go into more details there for you. And then also, I'm gonna send you the link as well, so you can have that as well. Okay, so it's right there.
So that's a great.
So that will give you examples. Yeah, it goes into detail. It's like that's the whole thing with the FAA. It's quite gray in a way, but yeah. So I sent you now, so it's going to give you a good indication there.
Cool. I'll look into it.
All right. So then we did touch up on the subject here of personal minimums. What are your personal minimums?
So I actually have my personal minimums printed out, right? So look at this.
You saw that I sent you that list, right? So you can fill it in with all the
Yeah, I saw the link. I didn't have time to go over it because I was doing other stuff, but I had my personal minimums printed out before. Destination airport would be 2.5 statute mile visibility, 2,000 foot ceilings, 15 knot crosswind solo, and then a 10 knot crosswind with passengers. And takeoff minimums would be 2 statute mile visibility, 1,500 foot ceilings, and marginal VFR is acceptable if I can see large holes. So, and then 13 knot direct crosswind for takeoff.
Okay. I think it's also important, you know, let me pull up this video here for you. And I think there's a lot of things that we do take for granted, you know, like when we're talking about minimums, we're talking about ceiling, we're talking about crosswind, but there are other things that perhaps we should take into consideration, like density altitude, that is one, runway length, you know, and also even the type of aircraft, you know. So imagine like you finish your instrument rating and then you go straight into, let's say, a turbo bonanza, you know, it's a really fast aircraft, and at that point, are you really going to be confident to use the same sort of like minimums that you have, you know? So I think it's quite important even for you to think about landing distance. You know, if you're going to an unfamiliar airport, you go and you do your calculation of how much landing distance you require, double that. You know, is if you're gonna, how much distance do you need to take off? Well, if it's an unfamiliar place, you know, you can even go and calculate your takeoff distance and your landing distance, and then you add those up together, and that could even be your minimum takeoff distance. So you know that if you were to take off, you have an engine failure or anything, you still know that you can dive right down and land that aircraft, you know. So there's this awesome video by Flight Shops, and then it's a takeoff that he did talking about that, which I'm gonna send it to you, and it's probably gonna be easier if you play from your end, since we're having difficulties, and you just watch this like now, and that's sort of going to give you a good indication how possibly we should encourage people to, you know, incorporate different factors into their personal minimums.
Let me pull it up.
Did you get it? Did you get it?
Yeah,
You're going to use up every possible inch of runway available.
I recently saw this footage for the first time and it scared the hell out of me. It's actually like 4 years old and it made the rounds, going viral in the aviation community back then. And I wondered, how could I have missed this? And then I realized it was because I had one of these around that time, so I was a little bit distracted from flying. But after things settled down in my life, I got back into it. So anyway, seeing this video actually inspired me to think about my personal minimums. Adding a margin to weather minimums is kind of an obvious one, but it's really important to think about margins with performance calculations as well.
Let me get my mojo. Alrighty.
So Chris Palmer from Angle of Attack was kind enough to share this footage with me so I could revive it and put a Flight Shop spin on it. The basic spin is, it's a high performance airplane, a turbo bonanza I believe. He's taken off from a very short runway, surrounded by trees at a high density altitude.
Alright, so let's do it.
Chris does an amazing job analyzing exactly what happens here, so I'm not going to get into those kind of details, but I'm going to provide links that you have to check out. For now, what I want to simply do is watch and react to it.
Airspeed is alive. Back. Engine's in the green. Back.
So clearly Chris knows he's facing a bit of a challenge as he starts this takeoff roll. But he knows his airplane, and he did his math, and he knows the numbers say it can be done, but the question is, will it be done? So after rotation here, he's committed, and you can see things aren't going as planned.
That's just a little scary. Well, oh boy. Wow. Okay, things we are not doing again.
So that couldn't have been any closer. Let's just back it up and check this out. Look at those treetops. I mean, the wingtips are definitely below those. So he just squeaked it through that gap. He managed to instinctually turn just slightly left there to find that one gap that he had, and he made it through. and he fought the urge to pull back, which I think a lot of people would have done, and then he would have mushed into those trees for sure. So kudos for flying right on the edge, man. He got it out, but just barely.
Okay, Chris.
So in Chris's article where he breaks it down, you'll see a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on in the conversation thread.
I we've learned our lesson. I actually thought we were kind of screwed there for a second. So did I.
So I think there's a saying that goes something like, experience is a difficult teacher because she gives the test first and the lesson afterward. And all lessons in aviation are not survivable. So the moral of the story here is just because the performance calculations say you can do it doesn't mean you will be able to do it. I mean, you need to fly the airplane perfectly. You need ideal conditions exactly matching whatever the conditions were supposed to be in the charts. So the reality of it is most airplanes are 10 plus years old that we're flying these days. And, you know, unless you're a multi-thousand hour pilot, you're not going to be flying perfectly. So the odds of you getting it done exactly as the book says are extremely low. And Chris is a very experienced pilot, and again, he does an amazing job breaking down everything that went on here, so I'm not going to get into the details, but at the end of the day, at a margin. So personally, I think I've kind of always ballparked 50%, but I'm going to officially say at this point, I'm going to add a 50% buffer to the performance numbers for my personal minimums for any takeoff calculations that I do going forward. So I'm just a private pilot doing my best to stay current and learn.
It's interesting, huh?
Yeah, it's very, very, very tight. That's for sure.
Yeah, so just think about that, you know. That's basically like for your own safety. Take that into consideration. I did have my own crazy experiences about that. I just want to circle back quickly about one thing. We did talk about currency being current. Okay. IP, you know what that is, right?
Instrument proficiency check.
When would you need an IPC?
After a year.
After a year. So let's just say that you are current right now. You pass your flight test, and then pass the 6 months. So let's say 6 months and like a week. Can you fly IFR at that point?
I only flew once. I'm not current. Is what you're saying?
Yes. So let's say, no, you are current up to this date. So like, you know, we're going to go do your flight test. You do all your 6 approaches. You have your license. And then from today, you don't fly anymore IFR for 6 months and 7 days. And then you want to go and rent a plane for the weekend and take some friends. And, you know that the weather, you're going to be in IMC. Can you?
No, I can't. I'd have to get a safety pilot with me.
Okay, so that's right. So that's great. And as well, an IPC, is it a pass or fail test? How does it go?
An IPC basically follows the checkride standards, and it is a not necessarily pass or fail. It is just a way to get you up to standard again with the person who conducts it.
Yeah, so you can even say it's the same as like a flight review, you know. So if the CFII, or you can do it for DP as well, they just need to feel that you are proficient. And then speaking about proficiency, what's the difference between currency and proficiency?
Currency is when I am legal to fly the aircraft. Proficiency is when I feel good flying the aircraft because I can control it.
That's good, yeah, for sure. You know, like you don't want to go and start shooting, you know, ILS to the minimums straight up as soon as you get that. All right, so I think that like right now let's talk about weather. Okay, so you were given cross country that you were expected to fly and also to plan. So before we even go and talk more about the route that you chose and how we're gonna get to the destination, how do you get your briefing? How do you get some type of weather information? How do you what's your process for your go, no-go decision there?
So I would call the flight service station first to get myself a standard briefing on what the route would be, and I'd do that probably the day before and the morning after. I mean, the morning of. I would also use Aviation Weather Center and a couple of those maps to figure out what the what the weather would be like along the route.
Okay, sounds good. So speaking about that, let me pull this screen up here. Okay, there you are. So here I need to put you right there. So share screen. All right, can you see this screen?
Yes. I'm really big on
Okay.
There you go.
All right, there we go. So, all right, so right here, I did pull up. I put in the flight plan for for your cross country. And are you familiar with like all of this view and everything here on flight service?
Yeah, it's a little bit different than what I use, but I could probably figure it out.
Yeah, so like as you're doing it, so I did fill up the flight plan right over here, and then I just requested an area briefing. So when you call your briefer, it's actually a very good idea, because this is the exact same screen that he's gonna go through, and then you can just go and follow along with him. So we can see here if we have any air mats. We can also have a look to see how the surface and everything. Okay, so since this is just like right here, what can you tell me about this map? So what's the difference between this L and this H? What are those lines? What can you tell me about it?
It's a surface analysis chart, and that's a low pressure and a high pressure with isogonic lines. Isogonic lines.
Okay, and what is, when you have like, this red line there, with those markings, what are those things?
It's going to be a warm front, and then the blue one is a cold front.
Okay, tell me more about a warm front.
Warm front is going to be typically better weather than a cold front. They will bring, stratiform clouds, more stable air.
Okay. All right. Tell me about the blue lines over there.
The blue lines is going to be crappier weather. Tends to have a bit more turbulence with cumuliform clouds. Colder weather usually as well.
Okay. What about in terms of visibility? Which one of those two are going to give me a better visibility?
The cold front should give you better visibility, and the warm front will give you reduced visibility.
Okay. And then what about here? What are those, the dotted, like, yellows?
Oh, those are, I believe, turbulence.
Ooh. How about we look it up?
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. This is the one. So what I know I need to work on for my check ride for sure is the flight planning aspect of it in regards to charts and all that, because it wasn't touched on much in training. That's like the one thing I know I need to.
Because like right now I'm digging into your KTN. So like I'm going through the things that you got incorrect. So it's one of the things.
Trough.
Yeah, it's a trough. So what does it mean when you have a trough?
It's a area of low pressure where the pressure is kind of descending on it.
Okay. Do you want to fly through that?
I would say no.
Yeah. So a trough, it's you can expect more like turbulence, like rougher air, things like that. What's the difference between what's a stationary front?
A stationary front is when two fronts stay in the same spot. They collide and the pressure is about equal, so they don't push over or under each other. They just stay.
Yeah. So then you have like, let's say, this system trying to decide who's going to push who, But then, so what is an occluded front at that point?
Occluded front is when a cold front catches up to another cold front with a warm front in between.
Okay, that's good. All right, and you know what that symbol is down there?
It's really small. It's hard to see. Oh, hurricane?
What do you need for a thunderstorm to form? What are the 3 ingredients for formation of a fundus?
You need an unstable lapse rate, you need moisture, and a strong updraft.
That's correct. Okay, so then looking at here, so if we, let's just say we're flying around here, how far do you want to be away from the center of those cells?
Granted, I'm in a legally 20 nautical miles, but say I'm in a Cessna, so I'll probably give myself a little more than that.
Yeah, for sure. So you really, for instance, even my personal minimums, I say that 30 to 35. The thing is, once you start getting a lot of cumulonimbus, you can get hail even like that far. So you want to try to be away, not just from the center, but from the outskirts from it, So I'm assuming that you're going to be using your foreflight as you're flying, right?
Yeah.
So do you have weather on your foreflights? Do you have ADSB in? Can you get like weather information on your iPad?
I do not. I just have the basic performance.
Okay. So let's just say if you're flying an airplane that you have a Stratus, and with that Stratus you can get ADSB into your iPad. How can you use that information to sort of like help you, to make a good decision as you are flying?
It should give me updated weather of what's going on around me, so I could use that to help with my flight planning.
Okay, but we're talking about when you're flying. So let's say you're doing your cross country and you have your ADSB weather on your iPad and you're looking at those cells. Is that it?
No, it's going to be delayed. Your best bet is just using your eyes.
Well, what if you're in?
Oh, if I'm not in the clouds, then no.
Yeah, so you can use, use everything to your advantage. So, for instance, they say that it's delayed for about 15 minutes. So, when you're seeing those cells moving, you don't want to try to because probably by the time of that system. So, use that with caution, because they say that's 15 minutes, but sometimes it's 15 minutes that they got the information. By the time they get to you, it's like 20-30 minutes, and then it can put you in a very bad spot, and then speaking about the iPad, what are the limitations of you utilizing your iPad?
It's not approved for IFR navigation.
Okay, but so what are you going to use then for your navigation?
Tracking courses and my flight plan that I had written down, all ground-based navigation aids.
Okay, so then that's a good topic that we touched on. What are the minimum equipment that you are required to have on your aircraft to fly IFR?
So this will be found in 91.205 for my minimum equipment. And we're going to have everything VFR related. That's your A Tomato Flames acronym. And then IFR would be your grab card acronym as well. And all of that can be found in 91.205. Instrument flight rules, you're going to need two-way radio communication. You're going to need gyroscopic rate of turn indicator, gyroscopic rate of turn indicator. You need slip skid indicator, sensitive altimeter, adjustable barometric pressure, clock displaying hours, minutes, and seconds with sweep second pointer, digital presentation. You need a generator or alternator of adequate capability. You're going to need a gyroscopic pitch and bank indicator and the gyroscopic direction indicator.
Okay, so what about the D? What does the D from the grab card?
So let me write it out. You have your radios, so generator, radios, alternator. I should just be able to look.
And try to sort of like know
directional gyro, right? The 250
Okay.
aircraft, yeah, slip skid, sensitive altimeter, clock, general altimeter, gyroscopic pitch and bank, and gyroscopic direction indicator.
Okay, and then what about if we're flying above flight level 240? What else do we need?
DME.
Okay, What if we have a GPS? Do we still need a DME?
Ooh, do we still need DME? I would say yes. I do not plan on flying over flight level 240 for a while, but my appropriate answer, I'm going to go with yes.
No. GPS will override the DME requirement. Okay. So then, the aircraft that you're flying, does it have a GPS?
No.
It does not have a GPS. Okay. But there are still certain things that we need to know about a GPS in case if you get into an aircraft that you have. So, what can you tell me about GPS? Basically, we have two types.
GPS and GR. To be honest, so my instructor, and from what I've understood, is that you're going to be asked all the questions based on what you are flying in that aircraft. And so I kind of left the GPS stuff out of it because, and then this is when it goes into the personal stuff. It's like, okay, well, if I'm going to go fly GPS, I'm going to have to spend time learning all those restrictions. But for now, I just like only focusing on what's in my aircraft because legally the DP is not going to be able to ask me about, what about this or that? Because
well, he can. That's the whole thing. He can go outside of that, but just know the basics. So, for example, you have a GPS. And then you also have a GPS that have WAS, and just know that the difference. Yeah. So, and just try to know the basic of the difference between a WAS GPS and versus a non-WAS GPS. All right. So the WAS, how it's gonna, basically like a GPS will know that you are within this gap, and a GPS with WAS knows that you are like within 5 feet, kind of deal. So things,
you can shoot the questions about it. I may know some information on it if you want to go through that.
Yeah, no, but it's all good. So what about RAIM? Do you know anything about
RAIM? Is receiver autonomous integrity monitoring. It is the ability for the GPS to pick up the signal, and if you don't have RAIM, you can't execute the approach.
Okay, and where can you find out information about RAIM?
I'm assuming on an not an AFD, NOTAMs or some indication on the GPS that would tell you have a RAIM outage.
Yeah, there's a website. So if you can even like just Google RAIM outage, and we'll show you on the map the areas that you may not have, but also your GPS will have that. So on the GPS, when you put your flight plan, you can put in the time of your ETA, and then you can press to calculate the RAIM, and we'll tell you if there will be RAIM available there. So even the 430 will do that. But then if you have a GPS that is WAS, then you don't have RAIM, because that uses like a ground station to validate the position.
As for the satellites, and WAS is the ground augmentation system.
Yeah. And then the other thing that you need to know as well about GPS is it really opens up your doors. So like in your case, what do you have, 2 VORs, and what do you have for equipment on your
DME and VORs? Pretty straightforward.
2 VORs?
Yes.
Okay. So then VORs. So apart from, we know that we have our grab card that we need, right? What checks do we need to make sure that the aircraft have in order for us to be legally allowed to fly? What is the acronym looking for here?
We need to have Aviate's acronym, and we got to have, specifically for the IFR, we got to have our altimeter checked every 24 calendar months. We have to have a 100-hour inspection if it's going to be for hire. We have to have our annual. We have to have our VOR check as well. We have to have our ELT checked and our static system.
Okay, you mentioned about a VOR check. Can you tell me more about it?
There's a couple types of VOR checks. There's multiple ways to go about doing it. You have a VOT, which is a ground-based test signal station on the airport you can check it with. There is a airborne check. There's a ground checkpoint that you can find often in the AFD for some airports. And there's also the dual VOR check.
Okay. Tell me more about them.
The tolerances, the tolerances for a dual VOR is 4 degrees. The airborne one is 6 degrees. The ground-based checkpoint will be, I mean, not the ground-based, the VOT check will be 180 degrees to and 360 degrees from. That'll be 4 degrees margin as well. And the ground checkpoint will be 4 degrees margin.
Okay. And where can I find the information about, how do I know where I need to go and check? Like, can you show me?
Be in the AFD for an airport.
Can you pull one up and show me on your screen, please?
Yeah. Let me go to...
I got grilled on this question on both my PFII and my IFR, because in New Zealand we don't have like AFD and we don't have like chart supplements called the AIP. Yeah. So everything is AIP with me, just like, okay, I'm gonna go and get a coffee. By the time I come back, you better know.
Yeah, I'm just put up, I'm trying to find it on the computer. I just use ForeFlight usually, but I went on Skype, AirNav, and reserve a hotel room. I don't know why. Airport guide, airports, KSNA, airport facility. Gonna go to the FAA website. KSNA, airport nav aid listing, as it loads and takes 10 years. I'll pull it up on here too.
What do you know about this DP from what people told you? Is it a good guy or?
Yeah. Oh, VOR test facility will be on VOT is 110.0 for John Wayne. KSNA. Is what I'm looking
okay,
at.
Yeah, so just be like prepared to know where you need to go in order to show the areas that you need to, where you can, how you can do it like a ground, how you can do an airborne. Also, this is like a very weird one, because some DPEs, they will ask you about your dual VOR check. Some of them, to be honest with you, you can do a dual VOR check to any kind of like VOR or anything like that. But some will tell you that you need to be on an airway to do it. But that makes no sense, because the radio that's coming out from my station is the same regardless of which radio you are in. So
yeah, and our test facilities will be on page 453 of the Southwest AFD supplement from the FAA, and it has what John Wayne's ground type VOR receiver on there. So
okay, awesome. So yeah, just be prepared to know how to show on your ForeFlight where it is, show the different areas about VOT, how there's like a specific area in the airport that you're gonna go and do. Make sure that you know where the record is being kept for the VOR, if you keep it on the aircraft or if it's somewhere else. Also make sure that he understands that it's either you, a pilot, that can do those checks, or a mechanic, stuff like that. Just like the basics from it. All right, so what about your flight plan? Can you pull that up on the screen and share that with me so we can go over it? Have a look on here.
Yeah, you can just type in my my waypoints.
All right, tell me. Go ahead.
It's KAJO, Alpha Juliet Oscar. And then it goes,
isn't it leaving from Fullerton?
It's leaving from Corona Airport.
Oh man, I thought it was okay. So
it's okay. It's still going to be basically the same route up there, except just a little bit extended off to the east.
What's Corona's airport code?
So Kilo Alpha Juliet Oscar.
Alpha Juliet Oscar.
And then I'm going to the Paradise VOR, PDZ.
PDZ, yeah.
Victor 186. Victor 186. To the Fillmore VOR, FIM.
FIN, yeah.
And then to the Gorman VOR, GMN.
Yeah.
And then to the Fasto 2 arrival. So that'll be FASTO.FASTO2. And then that'll take me to the initial approach fix for...
What the
final approach fix for the Bakersfield.
So, wait up. So, it's Victor. So, Kilo Alpha Juliet Oscar, the Corona Airport, to Papa Delta Zulu.
Yep.
Victor 186.
Yep.
To Papa Golf Yankee.
Nope. To after Victor 186, it's Foxtrot India Mike to the Fillmore VOR.
Foxtrot India Mike.
And then to the Gorman VOR, Golf Mike November.
Mike November. Okay, I got
and then
it
the
now.
Fasto arrival. And then that's what he said. Because he said to plan to fly the Fasto 2 arrival, so that's why it's in there.
Oh, okay, because, I thought that you would be taking off from the Fullerton, and then I just was expecting to see your departure procedure from there. But, this actually makes it easier. What altitude are you climbing to?
I had 8,000 as my 8,000 as my initial, and then as I would go more towards Gorman, there's a section on it where I have to be at 10,000, so I would request to go up to 10.
Let's see, Gorman.
Yeah, as I go up towards the Fasto 2 arrival, there is, let me pull it up. On the after the Gorman on the Fasto 2 arrival, it goes up to 10,000, but 8,800 is the Mocha. So I would probably request 9,000 because that's also the next intersection and see if they would give it to me. But if not, I could go up to 10,000 and be checking weather on the way over there, making sure to see if that freezing level would be gone or not. But it sounds like from what he was saying, like just plan 10,000s just like everywhere for the freezing level. So this is where it'd be interesting to see how he kind of phrases the questions.
It's interesting. Have you considered, like, why did you choose this route?
Because over the other, there's mountains. If you go to your VFR sectional route, if you go to your VFR sectional, there's a bunch of mountains over. If you just kind of take more of a direct path, it would take me straight over the mountains, and I don't want to do that because all of those MEAs would be, all those MEAs would be over like 10,000, and so it put me in icing conditions.
Really?
So, there's just but I could take. There's also there's multiple ways to get there. I could also take in Victor 459 to 459 as well, and it would still get me there, and actually take me less than 10,000. So that probably would be a better route.
Yeah. So I thought I would do that.
Yeah, I would change that.
Because it's gonna be shorter. So are you planning on what, a cruise of 100 knots?
Yeah, I think it's. I'd have to check because I gotta fly. I'm flying the new aircraft that I'm gonna be taking the check ride in. I think it cruises at 114, 113.
Okay. So, all right. So let's just even go from the one that you planned. So I'll share my screen, and then I'm gonna ask you some questions about it. So there you go. Start sharing. Can you see my screen there?
Not yet.
Yeah, it's been so annoying.
Oh, now I can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, I see it.
Let me see. All right. So here's the route that you chose, right? So we're gonna take off from Corona, and then we're gonna go on the Victor 186 all the way to the Fillmore, and from Fillmore, okay, up. All right, so
I'm gonna write a quick note to modify the route to Victor 459 because that actually does make sense a bit
yeah,
more.
it will save you time.
Cool. Okay.
So now we're just gonna ask you some questions about the map. All right, so and see where you're at. Okay, so what is the difference between these airports that are in green and some of them are in blue? Some of them are, see, they have like one that's blue there, and sometimes they have one that is brown. What's the difference?
The brown versus the colored ones means it has an instrument approach and versus doesn't have an instrument approach. And it also designates the type of airport.
Okay, what's a brown airport?
Brown airport is uncontrolled, I believe. This is also another section that I know I need to study up on, is the actual route section, so go for the grilling. But I would say the brown is uncontrolled, and if not, I would just pull up the IFR legend and just check everything out.
Okay, so an airport that is shown in blue and green, they have an approved low altitude instrument approach procedure published. Those in blue have an approved DOD low altitude instrument approach and or radar minima. Airports bases shown in brown do not have an instrument approach procedure. Okay, so that's the main thing difference there.
So I should say, well, because I said,
just say that just say that the brown doesn't have an instrument procedure, you know, and that the blue and green will do. But also, okay, so what's the difference between this guy here, right, cable right here, versus this one that has got like another circle inside?
Plus military versus not.
So this one is a civil, and this is a combined military and civil, right? If you do have one that is just one round that doesn't have the things sticking out, that's gonna be just a military, all right? Okay, so then let's see what else we have here. Okay, so you are going on a Victor Airway, right? How do you know when you need to change from one VOR to another?
How do I know? Oh, changeover point. Like there's one at Gardy off to your right.
Okay.
Sorry, it's your middle now, middle high. There's a 64 and 16 next to it.
Okay, so right here. Okay, how else do you know when you need to change your frequency?
The halfway point.
Okay, and I'm looking for one more way that we know when we need to change.
We need to change. I would say by the X.
Right here. You see?
Oh,
so
the end of the T.
Whenever they change angle, they're not straight. This would tell you that you do need to change frequency. Okay, what is this 13.7?
The off-route obstruction clearance altitude.
Okay, Oroka. And what does that guarantee me?
Obstacle clearance. Off-route.
For how high?
2,000 feet above non-mountainous and 1,000 feet above. 1,000 feet above non-mountainous and then 2,000 feet above mountainous.
Okay, great. All right, what is this?
That's a military route, IR.
Okay, and what's the difference between? Sometimes you have military route that have 3 numbers, and then sometimes you have one that have like 4 numbers.
Oh,
Let me see if we can find one.
it's the altitudes.
Yeah, so 4 numbers, it's usually that they are operating up to 1,500, I believe, and then 3 they go higher than that. So just know that, you know, like, tell the DP that you'll be flying away from that. You know, there's no interest for us to be flying those routes. Yeah, so military training routes on both sides. Let me see. Yeah, I'll try to find it. It's somewhere on the legends, but I'll try to find it. I'll send you the information for that. You know, like, sometimes they can be very picky about that. My instructor, for instance, he would like really dig into it with me, but it really depends on your DP. All right, what does this 25 mean?
That's the DME distance.
Okay. From where or from what?
So that one is from the thermal airport. It's 25 from... Oh, just kidding. No, it's opposite. It is whatever airport is off to the left there. Paris 43.
You were right. So it's
yeah,
actually,
so
you can see, yeah. So you can just see that the numbers, they sort of like go increasing, you know? Yeah, so this is mainly there so you can identify that intersection. Okay, what is this?
A localizer. Localizer frequency and channel from the JLI.
Okay. Yeah, and this is how you're gonna be able to identify this intersection if you don't have, let's say, a DME. So that's what it's there for. So if you have just a dual VOR, no DME, you would be using that. Okay, so tell me more about, okay, let's go right here. The 8,000 and the 9,700.
So 9,700 if you are going westbound, and then 8,000 if you're going eastbound.
Okay, and then what about on here?
So you have 11,000 as your MEA, and then 10,200 as your MOCA. MOCA.
Okay, what's the difference between them?
MEA gives you adequate reception as well as obstacle clearance, and the MOCA gives you clearance from obstructions as well.
Yeah, you don't have any guarantee that you're going to be getting a reception. So, you know, like, try to be above that. That's like for sure, if you can. But like in your case, your DP assumed that you would have, you know, icing at 10,000. So yeah, and then speaking about icing, what can the aircraft that you're flying, can you fly in icing?
I cannot. It is not equipped for known icing conditions.
Okay, do you have any anti-icing equipment in your aircraft?
In regards to the carburetor heat and the pitot heat, those are about the only two weapons I have.
I'm pretty sure that you have one more. Can you think about what it is?
Carb heat, pitot heat. Carb heat, pitot heat, and the alternate static source. No, that wouldn't. But
No.
that's not a de-ice. Carb heat, pitot heat. I'm trying to think. What else? What other anti-ice? I'm blanking.
Inside your airplane during the winter, what do you put it on?
Say again?
You flying during the winter and you're cold inside the cabin. What do you put it on?
Heat.
Yeah, so the cabin heat, also you have a defroster which is right on your window, so it blows hot air on your windshield. So those are the three that, like, basically most aircrafts will have types of de-icing.
Yeah, I don't think the ones I fly have the defroster function.
Yeah, when you put it on, usually the cabin heat will always blow through the window as well. So it goes up through the windshield and then goes also on the bottom of your legs. So that's how they are routed.
Okay.
So speaking about icing, let's say you notice that you're starting to pick up some ice on your airplane. What would you do?
I would first contact ATC. Well, first I would fly the aircraft, get myself out of icing conditions. Whether that means going up or down is dependent on how I think the ice is starting to form. Your best bet most time is to get yourself below the cloud layer if you have altitude capability to do that. And then I would let ATC know that I've encountered icing conditions and would want to get on the ground as soon as possible.
So you would just go and start flying down without asking ATC, or how would you proceed about it?
Or I would tell ATC that I'm getting ice.
Okay, and then what are you going to request?
A lower altitude.
Okay, and what if they say they are unable? What are you going to do?
Then I have to declare an emergency because I'm not flying in icing.
There you go. Declare an emergency, you know. You have paperwork to fill out after that, but you know your life, it's way more important than some paperwork, and especially flying with people. If you ever, you know, in any condition that you are unsafe or unsure, declare that emergency, and that's going to be the best outcome there for you. Okay, so I just looked at here. What does that little flag there mean?
That's a minimum crossing altitude flag.
Okay, and where can I find this minimum crossing altitude?
So
where's the information at?
Very off to the right over there, it says Victor 201, 7,600 north. So when I'm traveling northbound on Victor 201, I gotta be, before I get to the MCA, I have to be at 7,600.
Okay, great. That's good, man. As long as you know that, all of these details, you're gonna be good. Okay, what's the difference between, you know, like, why are these lines in blue and why are these lines here in black?
So the T routes are for GPS, and the black is going to be for your standard ground-based navigation.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's talk about, okay, for your flight plan. So, what's the weather at our destination?
It says our weather at the departure weather at the time of arrival is 2 statute mile visibility, 200 broken, 300 overcast, and plan to fly the Fasto to arrival.
Fasto to arrival. Okay, so let's pull this Fasto to arrival, and if you can, you know, explain me, where would you like me to zoom?
Just a little bit more. That's perfect. So what I have on my arrival is we're going to be entering via the Gorman VOR, and that's going to take us to Fasto, which will be the final approach fix, I believe. Yeah, which would be the initial fix for the Fasto intercept, 14.8. Yeah.
So, okay. All right, and which frequency are you going to use once you are on that Fasto to arrival?
Well, I'm going to start off with 116.1 for the Gorman VOR.
I'm talking about approach, speaking with like approach or tower. Which frequency are you going to use once you get into that Gorman VOR?
So I will have the 118.8 south because we are approaching from the south, and I will have Bakersfield Tower in the backup ready to go in 118.1.
Okay, awesome. And where does the Fasto 2 arrival start?
Can you scroll down? It's that's the Gorman transition. It's Fasto 2 arrival. Oh, the arrival starts. Well, we're entering from the Gorman, and the approach starts at the Fasto intercept.
Okay, so so like in this case, it's also like your approach fix, but like your approach, it actually starts here at Minji. This is like the beginning of it, right? Or at the Fasto, because this, so what's the difference between the dark line and the not so dark lines? What's the difference between them?
Are you talking about the localizer 301 versus the outer lines?
Yeah, so like for example, right here, you have this 344 radio, and then on here on the 301, that line is like much darker than this other line. Why is that?
So that is at Fasto and Mingi, that is actual on the approach plate that is going to be depicted, and all the other ones, the thinner line is going to be in your en route environment.
Okay, not necessarily. Those are called so for example here, so you see you have Palmdale, okay, let's see, Lake Hughes, and then what else do we have there? And then you have that's going off the localizer. So if we go here on Sky Vector, right, where are we? And we're talking about the Lake Hughes, you actually don't see that at all. So those are called feeder routes, okay? So just like be prepared that these items here, they're called feeder routes. Sometimes they may be on the en route, but if you're coming from like the Lake Hughes, you can actually go like on the 305 radio. But then if we go and have a look at the Lake Hughes here, what the hell is that? Sorry. So where is it?
So the proper answer that you're looking for is those are feeder routes, not necessarily on the en route.
Yeah, because it's not going to show you. Okay, so, all right, look at right there. So Lake Hughes, right? So do you see how the airway, it only depicts here the airway of like the Victor 165?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess
Yeah,
I was
so
coming
like
from. I was wondering what you're wanting to hear on that then, because I was looking at it, I was like, okay, well, Mingi and Fasto would just be depicted as the actual approach itself in regards to it's on the localizer, but I don't know what exactly you're wanting to hear for that one.
Yeah, so they just say like, yeah, those thinner lines, they mean they're feeder routes, and like these even skinnier ones is just gonna give you like an indication for you to identify the intersections. You know, in your case, you don't have a GPS or anything, so you would have to use your two VORs in order to identify those intersections. Okay, so then we're coming in, okay, to Middlesfield, and then which approach? We're gonna do the ILS. All right, let's pull it up right here. All right, so let me just pull up the weather. What did he say that the ceilings were at 200 feet overcast, right?
200 broken and then 300 overcast.
300 overcast. Okay. So touchdowns on 493. All right. Okay, sounds good. So break this down to me, this approach.
Let me pull it up real quick. So we're going to be using the localizer coming in from BFL, and our final approach fix will be JUPEX at 7.6 DME. Our final approach fix altitude is at or above 2,500. Our minimums for ILS 30 rights would be 698 feet, MSL 1,800 feet, for so just a little bit less than half statute mile visibility, and our AG altitude will be 205. And our missed approach would be climb to 1,000, turn right heading 145. Going to the EHF radial 145, climbing right turn to 3,000 for the missed approach. Our MSA would be 25 nautical miles, and it would be 8,800 between 180 and 330, and 3,700 on the opposite side of that. Our Bakersford Tower would be 118.1. Bakersfield approach controls 118.8. We'd be getting the ATIS on the way in 118.6. Our approach course would be 301, channel 56 for the DME. Touchdown zone elevation is 493. Airport elevation is 510. And we'd be looking for the Mauser coming in.
Okay, so whenever you brief your plate, just start right away from the top and just sort of like, go, okay, so we're going to be 119, 111.9. We don't need to put the channel of the DME. Our approach course is going to be 301. We have 7,400 for landing distance. Our touchdown zone is going to be 493. The elevation is 510. And then you can go and sort of like read, just brief there on top, and then you just take the information that you need. Okay, this is going to be our ATIS. That's going to be our approach right there. There's our tower. Ground, we really don't care. Unicorn. The lighting system, your missed approach. So for example, for your missed approach, you did say that we were climbing straight ahead to 1000, then I'm making a right hand turn to 3000 to go on that 145 radio. And then once you got here to the EHF, you start talking about the MSA, but we're actually holding at 3000. So don't get confused, just like go logically. Like first thing is we're just gonna go, forget about what we're doing. We're gonna climb to straight ahead 1000 feet. Once we're at 1000, we're gonna start making a right hand turn.
Uh-oh. I think you froze. I don't know if you can hear me. Almost. A little frozen still.
And then once you're talking about, is it frozen?
Now you're back.
Is it still? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not even like that drastic type of turn. But then when you're looking at this, then like you can go ahead and say, how are you gonna enter this? If you go this, how would you enter?
A parallel.
Parallel?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are.
And when you asked, I thought you meant just kind of like give a brief description of what the plate was and the major points that were on it, so I kind of just was bouncing around.
Yeah, no, 100%. But you can I sort of love to give more information sometimes than necessary, but you don't want to sort of get yourself ahead, but you just break that down to him. Okay, we're going to climb 3000, and then we're going to hold it at 3000, and then unless if he asks you about the MSA, then you're going to explain. So we started here on top. You told him the frequency, the approach course, airport information. You have read, and then he's going to ask you, what is this T and what does this A mean?
Non-standard takeoff and alternate standards. So alternate minimums, takeoff minimums, they're non-standard.
Okay, and then he can ask about the lights that you have, and then you can be like, well, I can go and look it up. And then he can ask you, what does this star mean on top of the tower?
It's part-time.
Okay, what does the L mean?
Lighting. It has lights.
Okay, and then he can ask you, are the lights going to be on or off if we're flying at night?
And then you have to look at the timing of the airport and when it's operational, and that should give you the AFD will tell you that.
Yeah, so let me pull it up, the AFD right here on my end. Okay, where are you? So, yeah, just be prepared to break down to him, like, yeah, if we're going at night, the tower closes at this time, this is where you can find the information. You just got to be able to show where the information is at. And then we come down, so then you explain the top part, and then here's your top view of your approach. You can talk about your MSA as well, like just saying that, if you are within the zone, you are safe to 3,700 feet, or if you are within this radio, you need to be above this, so you are clear of terrain. And then you start having a look here, so what does this cross mark here mean?
That's the final approach fix.
That's your final approach fix. Okay, what does the bottom line mean?
At or above 2,500.
Okay, what if the line was above, not below?
Then you can't go through 2,500.
Yeah, so that's going to be your ceiling. Yeah, and then what if you have a line on the bottom and on top?
It's a mandatory altitude.
So you can't go above or below. You have to be at that above or below. You're going to see that more on your SIDS. Okay? All right, so let's say, boom, we get there on that final approach fix, and then somehow your glide slope is not working. What do you do?
Glide slope is not working. I would have to revert to my localizer minimums for 30 right.
Okay. All right, so let's say we're on this approach here, and we're not gonna shoot the ILS, and because let's say we don't have winds that are favorable for 30, but the winds will be favorable for 12. How would we do that?
Well, I would have to pull up the the approaches going into Bakersfield and look at them for 1-2, which would be.
Okay, but let's just like make a scenario that this is the only approach that we have for that airport. Let's say that's it. We even have this localizer ILS that
I'd have to go to my alternate.
Well, what about a circling approach?
I could do a circling at 960, but if if the ceiling's at 800 and the visibility, I mean, if my circling minimums are at 960, 450 feet above, and my ceiling is at 300 overcast, I'm gonna have to go to my alternate.
Yeah, you screwed 100%. Okay, you know what that D means over there?
That's just the designator for the airport.
That one is
I'm trying to think of the not the name of the view. I would just look it up on the legend. Check myself.
So that's to tell you that shows to indicate runway declare distance information is available. So yeah, it's some DPs they may ask you. I think even my DP asking people about that, especially if you get someone that really tries to be like as smart as, he will go like into much details about that. And if that does happen to you, you just say, I am not sure. I can look it up for you, and you can just go and get the chart legend and show him, and then you are good to go. And then the same thing for the C. You know what does that C mean?
It'd be the same thing. I just look it up.
Yeah, that basically says that circling have different minimums. So that says that you have an expanded circling approach maneuvering airspace. So you can go and look it up, and we'll tell you different information in regards to your airspeed, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so
that'd be in the terminal procedures publications.
No, it's gonna be. Let me have a look. So Bakersfield, it's gonna be. No, not on the airport. Let me just pull it up here on my info.
Does it mean that in the description, because it says like circling not applicable in northeast runway 12 left 30 right?
Is that what it's
No, that's just like something else, because that can be that. Let me have a look if they have any other information. Cluster 2, Magic 4, VOR, takeoff minimum input. One other thing as well that you need to be aware, did you go through your ACS?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that, so let me pull up your ACS here. Okay, so we did cover weather, we did cover your cross country, okay, we did cover your cruising altitude. So oxygen requirements, he can ask you about your oxygen requirements. Just be prepared to know about what you need.
Yeah, 12,500,
right, so,
14,000, 15,000. I know those.
Yeah. Okay. Effects of wind, whatever, because that's not really. Okay. So this one thing that you got wrong was the calculating time and descent, all of that stuff. So you can just pull it up, your climb and descent table. Okay, just know where to reference that.
Performance and my POH.
Yeah, well, so you can even go, let's see if SkyVector
also
shows.
ForeFlight, so.
Yeah, so like I don't use ForeFlight, I use Garmin. So let's see. Let me pull up another. Let's do a VOR alpha here. And the other thing, so you know about timing approaches as well, right?
Yes.
How to use this information here. Okay, just be sure to know that. Also, I also remember your categories. So we are at 90 knots here for category A. If you're having a faster approach speed, then you will need to jump on your category. So little things like this. So, okay, then we did speak, okay, VOR, okay, ILS. All right, so let's see what else we can cover from here. All right, so do you have an alternate for your flight plan?
Yeah, I picked, let me pull it up. Where'd it go? I picked KMIT, which is basically a little bit northwest of it.
Can you use KMIT?
It has a instrument approach. Let me check.
Okay, what?
Yeah,
All right,
it has,
so there's
it has a VORA.
Okay, so can you see here on my screen? I shared the plate. So you have a VOR alpha.
Yes.
So are you sure that we can use this airport as an alternate?
Yes, and wherever we choose an alternate, the weather will be adequate as well. So that's good to know.
Okay, but can we use this airport as an alternate? I'll ask again.
Can we use the airport as an alternate? So what are for after 600? I have to have 802 statute miles visibility coming in there. Let me look at the approach. 802. So I would say no because it is at 9. Actually, wait. Yeah, the ceilings are too high for the circling MDA for the MDAs. It's at 10,000.
Well,
it's
so,
at 1,900.
so that's the only approach that you could shoot at this airport because the other one is a GPS, right? You don't have a GPS.
Yeah.
So you have to do the VOR alpha.
Yeah.
But can you use this airport as an alternate, even if you had a GPS?
I couldn't know. I just picked it because he says the weather will be adequate at whatever airport I choose. But that is a good point to bring up. So I would have to go and pick an alternate where the visibility would be visibility and ceiling would be high enough for me to use.
Okay, so have a look on my screen and have a look at this. What does that say?
What am I looking?
Right there on the A and the T.
It's not applicable.
Yeah, so you could not use this airport as an alternate at all. So, that's one thing that you need to take into account. It's like, if you're looking for an airport that's nearby, you gotta go and see. And sometimes it's so close from where you are to, we're talking probably 10, 15 miles?
Yeah.
So the weather will be the same. Yes, your DP did say, but also be prepared that you cannot use that as an alternate because even if the weather is adequate, it's saying there, this is not authorized as an alternate. That's what the NA mean.
That's a good point.
And then if you go ahead and then you have a look, you have another, Delano Municipal, DLO, okay, then you have a VOR approach there. And then look what it says.
It's
a little bit further up. You can't use that either. So then you can keep going up, and then the other one would be PTV right there. So let's see if that we could use. Okay, there's a VOR approach. Yeah, you could use that. That's the only one that you would be able to use. And that one would be 26, 30 miles away. So, that's not too bad. So that's the closest alternate that you'll be able to use is that one.
Yeah, cool.
So just keep that in mind of the NA. You know, if you have a look at your weather map and you, let's say, you ask departure or any controller that you're speaking, and he says like, well, the weather it looks better towards the west, then to be honest, depending, like we have what, 5 hours of fuel on board for that, for your aircraft?
Yeah, you'd be able to fly there.
Yeah, so at that point, you probably could even go like to Paso Robles. That's probably would be like a safe bet, you know. And from there, you have like more approach options. And worst comes to worst, you can even go to San Luis. I know it's far, but at least at that point it's the closest airport that you have, unless you start heading back to your destination. Because I would feel more comfortable going towards the coast than flying more towards the mountains.
Yeah, inland.
So, you know, like, have these things on the back of your mind, so you can be to your DPs like, look, all of these airports here, they don't have like, you know, cannot be used as an alternate. And then there's like this other airport up there, 30 nautical miles that, well, you know, like this is the only one that I could use. But then if I go there because I'm getting closer to the mountains and the weather is not good, I think that I would feel better just to go and fly towards Paso Robles, because that will give me time to prepare for that approach. I'm 70 miles out from there. I can brief my place, I can get myself organized, I'm not rushed, and I can make like a better judgment. And if worse comes to worse, it doesn't work there, I have another option only 10 miles south. And, you know, and if there doesn't work, I have another option that's 16 miles south. And these are all places by the coast, and I'm going to be clear from mountain areas. So try to explain things in a logical way like that to show that you are going to be safe with your flying. You know, little things like this. But that's a big one, and it can be a reason for him to fail you if you can not identify an appropriate alternate that shows like that you didn't take your time to plan for that. Okay, so tell me the difference between, we need to do two more things here, and then those are like clean cuts, and then we'll see how you're doing. Non-precision approach. What's the difference between non-precision, so a precision approach, and minimums from precision to non-precision?
A precision approach will get you close to the ground, and a non-precision approach will leave you higher away from the ground.
Okay, that's a good way to put. Okay, what's the key difference between precision and non-precision as well? Precision approach will give you vertical guidance, whereas a non-precision will only give you lateral. But also a GPS approach will give you both, but it's also considered a non-precision.
A GPS
So,
overlay.
Yeah.
I purposely phrase that as a very direct but, you know, not exact answer. But yeah, so my knowledge would say yes, a precision approach has the glide slope in it as compared to non-precision approach, which does not have the glide slope. For precision approach, you have the DA and DH, and the non-precision approach, you're going more on timing, and you have a minimum descent altitude that you're going to be flying at.
Yeah, and then he can go and ask you, okay, so what about a back course? Is it a precision or non-precision?
It's going to be a non-precision. I've only flown one back course, and it didn't have a glide slope, and it was just a localizer.
Yeah, so if you're flying an ILS back course, you don't use the glide slope because it's projecting to the... Because remember that your glide slope is actually on the end of the runway. So you're coming here, and it's going to be on this end from the runway. But if you're coming on the back course, it's going to be at the beginning of the runway. So it's going to be oversensitive, and you cannot use that to give you vertical guidance. All right, and one other thing we need to talk about, it's going to be spatial disorientation.
Go for it.
All right. what do we need to know about spatial disorientation?
If I'm feeling it, rely on my instruments. Trust the instruments.
100%. So remember, keep that scan going. Do not trust any of your senses or anything like that. What about a false horizon?
False horizon is when, you know, I'm flying and I see the mountains are kind of sideways like this, but my brain tends to think those are actually the horizon, and go back to trusting your instruments. Don't follow along with what's outside of you. Just focus on keeping that horizontal line referenced on your attitude indicator.
Okay. So,
Uh-oh, you just
hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Can you hear?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, my
probably just
died. Yes. Keep that in mind. So for spatial disorientation, like at this level, they should not really be asking you like what's causing it and talking about like your inner ear and stuff like that, but more like don't trust your senses, don't look outside for reference. If you are inside the cloud and you're getting like this sense of disorientation, you can turn your lights off, like your strobe or your front light, just so it doesn't really affect your perception, you know, and just make sure to trust those instruments. One other thing, we talked about icing. Let's just go back over that and briefly talk about icing of the pedostatic system. Okay, so you know what would happen if certain, let's say, okay, what would happen if we have a blocked pedal system?
It would act as an altimeter. If
What's
my
gonna?
if my airspeed indicator would act as an altimeter if my pedostatic, the ram air was cut off.
It's actually gonna read 0.
Well, if I'm flying straight and level at the same altitude, but if I start a climb, then it would go and act as an altimeter. It would increase my airspeed, and then if I started descending, it would decrease my airspeed.
That's if your drain hole is also. So your pedostatic, like that's the sort of light vision that we have, right?
Yeah.
Well, if just the tip is frozen or blocked and your drain is open, it's gonna go and read 0 because that's act like what's it called? Sorry, like a static port.
So should I clarify on the test whether that is, because I know that, I'm just asking should I clarify on the test to ask which hole or both holes are getting blocked, or?
It will tell you, like, if your pedal tube, you have a blocked pedal, and but your drain hole, it's not frozen, and then you're like, well, the only thing that's going to affect the pedal only affects your airspeed indicator. If both freezes and it's not working, then it's going to act like as an altimeter,
Then it's a clog
right?
system.
And then the only issue that you have is when your static freezes or blocks. So, you know, if you have a blocked static, which instruments would that affect?
My altimeter and my VSI.
Okay. Do you have an alternate air in your aircraft?
In my aircraft.
Okay, so what indication would you have?
I would have a higher than normal, so it would be like the high to low, look out below, would be the typical phrase that people use.
And also remember, and he's like, okay, so you have a blocked, it's completely blocked. What can you do?
Pitot heat.
Okay, and then you put your pitot heat, it doesn't. Oh, but remember, on the Cessna, your pitot heat, it's only going to defrost your pitot system. Your static is on the side.
So you're asking if my static is blocked? What can I do?
Yeah.
Descend to warmer temperatures. Increase my just descend to warmer temperatures.
Okay, and then what if it doesn't get unblocked? What if it's clogged, like a little bug got in there and there's no way that you're going to unclog it?
Then I would get to VFR conditions as soon as possible, coordinate with ATC, and do the safest thing. I'd probably declare an emergency, especially if I'm in IMC, because that is something that is insanely necessary for landing. Shooting approaches.
So you can break your VSI. So if you break VSI, that's gonna give you like act as your alternate, So that's like an old school trick there. And you also want to break your VSI because it's the cheapest. It's $500 versus like thousands for the other stuff. So just like think about stuff like that. How do you feel with your compass, like compass turns, compass errors, and things like that?
That's something I know I need to practice, but I understand the basic premise of it and unos and ands and how to kind of navigate with it. It's just, that's something I know I need to get up in the air and actually practice with.
Okay, so let's just say you're flying and then your direction indicator failed, so then you need to rely on your compass, right? So what source of heading indication can you use?
Well, I'd use the compass.
You can pull up your ForeFlight. You can even
I have my GPS for sure.
You can even get your phone, and to be honest with you, get your phone and then get your compass and use that, because you're gonna have no recession, no precession, like nothing like that, and whatever it points is gonna go. Like even for the people that I started teaching instruments on the Garmin 430, you have a compass on there, and it's actually going to be much easier for you to use that, But remember, you have your iPad there, man, and if there's like any emergency or anything, you can use that as your primary source of information. If you have like any failures or anything like that, you can even use that as your altimeter if it's like bad. Just remember that. Don't try to over rely on it. You don't even need to legally carry maps on the airplane. You are not a commercial pilot, or you're not flying for a commercial operation. So your iPad can be your primary source of, not primary source of navigation, but it can be your maps. It's completely legal for that. Depends on your DPE, of course, but when you do your flight plan, also load your flight plan on your phone. If it goes and turns off your iPad, just pull your phone out, and then like boom, it's like your battery died. And if you have like a battery pack, just have it there and plug it in. Like, okay, there you go. Like honestly, if he's not accepting that, man, he's a very hot-headed person, because these are the things that you're gonna do once you get that rating. So he might as well make sure that you are proficient on that. So I think you're all good. You just need to touch up more on weather. Make sure that you know that stuff. What else are you feeling unsure about?
I like I said, like I know the areas that I need to study and haven't put as much time into, including like the weather and like the details of the flight planning aspects of all that. But yeah, I think it's the general concepts I understand. It's the details of it, like for example, you're talking about the alternates and like actually going in and checking that A, and like granted I got the right conclusion, I just took the long way to get there, but it's just the details of it and knowing weather maps and all that. But that's just studying on my own time that I'm going to be doing over the next 2 weeks or so here. So
you have 2 weeks for your check ride?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
You have a lot of time. Trust me, try doing that like in 10 days from when you took your test. That will. The other thing is, when you go and do your oral, don't try to reference everything to regulation numbers and everything like that. That's not expected. Just know where to go, like, hey, what equipment do you need? Oh, that's going to be my grab card. Then I have my 8 tomato flame. It's going to be my grab card. This is what I need. That's going to be like my generator. This is going to be my radio navigation. This is going to be like my alternator / generator. Just break it down. And then once I have that, I need to make sure that I have my AV8, write it down. These are the checks that I need to do. And stuff like that, just like keep it general. Don't dig yourself into that hole, As I said, I have no idea how your DP is, but some of them, if you go down that hole, they are gonna make sure that you keep going and getting yourself digging deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know and says like, hey, I'm just gonna go and reference, buy one of these for your check ride as well. Do you have one of those?
No, what is it?
So it's an IFR flight file.
IFR flight.
Right. So you put your files inside here, and then right there. So you put your departure, you put your destination, you put your alternate, and any other information. And you take this with you into the flight. Everything that you need to know is here. So do you see like
Amazon?
Sure, or Sporty. Sporty is probably going to be cheaper. I got this at the flight school. And then there's information here talking about your weather briefing, your pilot currency, conversion from RVR to miles, instrument checks for you that you need to do as you're taxiing. And then there's like talking about VFR on top clearance, position reports. Remember, talk about your trusty T's throughout your whole check ride, you know, so you go through like turn, time, twist, you know, like all of that, and verbalize all of these things. And especially like when you start talking about your approach, okay, once I'm here, I'm doing my trusty T's, I'm setting up my course, have a flow of everything. But this is like a great aid. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy this shit for my check ride, but it's like legit. I've been taking this to every single flight that I have, and yes, I do have my checklist and everything on my iPad, but just have like some sort of like redundancy. It doesn't matter. Make sure that you have a printout copy of your approach plates for wherever you're going to be shooting your approaches. He sent you, right? Like the approaches that you're going to be doing. Yeah, it's print them out. Make sure that you print out as well the ground movement from all the places that you're going to be. Yeah, like just don't dig yourself into a hole. Like that's the main thing. And I got myself into it and just avoid it. What else? So for your flight plan, let me pull this up. I'm gonna show you what I recommend for you to do. So if you wanna write this down, so it's a different airports, right? So Corona, I would go from there to.
Yeah, so
Corona's, you use the ODP out of Corona to get to the Paradise Vortex, and then I'd head on Victor 186 all the way out to the Darts intersection, and then I'd take Victor 459.
Yeah, so let me see. Sorry, let me just zoom in. Yeah, so what did you say? So take off, and then you can go straight to that, which intersection is that? Let me zoom in. Tiffany intersection?
I'm getting there. Wait, where are you looking?
So it's on Victor 186. Yeah.
Past Tiffany, all the way to past Adam, Pat's It's Me, Elmo Perms to Darts, then Darts to Victor 459. Take that to LHS, Lake Hughes, and then from there you can go to the Fasto. Make sure that connects, right?
Yeah. So let's see.
It goes to Palmdale. So it's not on the Fasto to arrival. Oh yeah, it is. Lake Hughes is right there. Yeah, so it goes to Lake Hughes, then to Ibwen.
So 100% will do that. So yeah, so there you go. So you're still doing your arrival. So basically from there, take off, go straight into the Tiffany intersection, Victor 186 to Darts intersection, Victor 459. And then to Lake Hughes, and then straight on the Fatso 2, you have you don't even need to request like a lower altitude or anything like that. You can see that your MEA is no higher than 8,000 at all.
Yeah.
So you're fine, you know. And plan that for 8,000 feet throughout the whole way. You can even go and plan to go, honestly, even like taking off and going direct to the Paradise Vortex, you know, just to sort of like make it easier as your like original point, and then just follow that Victor, you know, and at that point you can even be like, as soon as you take off, be like, yeah, okay, we're just gonna go and start trekking towards the Tiffany.
Well, to get out of Corona, he's probably going to ask me to use the ODP, is what I was thinking.
Let me pull it up.
That's, yeah. So actually, yeah, I just figured it out. So it goes to Paradise, then you follow Victor 186 all the way to Darts. At Darts, you turn onto 459, and then you turn 459 turns into 165. That takes you, then Victor 165 takes you to Victor 165 can take you directly to the Lake Hughes VOR, LHS, and then that enters you into the Fasto 2 arrival.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, it works out.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just make sure that you go there through Lake Hughes. And it's just gonna be like, yeah, a lot easier. Makes more sense. It's like, it's more direct, less turns. Make sure that you know exactly what you are changing. So basically, as soon as you take off, you're gonna already have dialed in your Paradise Vortex, and then as soon as you get to the Paradise Vortex, you're gonna go and turn into the 278 radio, and then you're gonna go and follow that until, how long is this Victor Airway? Let me have a look. That's so cluttered over there, man.
Yeah.
So 22.
There you go. Yeah, I got it. I got it worked out.
Yeah.
Paradise to Tiffany, to Adam, to Pyro, to It's Me, to Elmo, to Perms, to Zizdy, to Darts, to Barry, to Kimo, to Sogs, to Lake Hughes VOR, Lake Hughes to Amont, or to Lopes, then to Amont, then to Fasto. And that would keep me underneath the 10,000 foot level.
Yeah, because if he gave you those details, he's gonna be like asking you like, why are you even planning, you know, knowing about icing? And this way you're already clear out of the way. Keep in mind again about your alternate. So giving up, man, like
Portable
say,
is the only one
available for use. I think that was actually a good reference because he wants me to, because he said all the weather for the alternates are available, and I guarantee that's something he wants me to, like, what I did was just like, oh, pick something next to it, and then realize that I couldn't use it, and then be like, oh, what's the nearest one? And it's actually like Porterville all the way up to the top. You know.
What is that? 20?
yeah, so like straight up. So then maybe just go to Paso Robles as your alternate, and then you can just be like, yeah, you know, the thing is, yeah, the weather could be good there, but what if towards the way, if the ceilings were this high, it's the same, but I'm getting closer to terrain. I'd rather go towards the coast where there's less terrain, less risk. You know, you're just like showing him that you are, you know, like being safe. Yeah.
Actually, there's
a lot more terrain towards Paso Robles than there are up there Porterville.
Oh, really? Let me pull out the VFR. I was just looking on the IFR because
it's
I
like
was just
a big.
I was looking at the
valley.
old road.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it goes to 11. Let me just pull up the VFR chart then.
It's just California. We got those mountain ridges all the way up the coast on both sides.
There's a private airport there, San Luis. Yeah, or probably just go like further north. Then, you know, you can even put, so what is it? FAT, F-A-T, Fresno, Yosemite. How far is that? That looks pretty far.
Yeah. Anyways, but I think I get the general gist, and I'll just go back and review all that.
So, yeah, medical, just like you know,
Part 6.
difference between your first class and your second class. You don't even need to go and say you need a class 1 for ATP privileges, because you can have an ATP and fly on a class 2. So it's an airline, a part 121 that would require you if you are PIC. So things like that, which you are not expected to know, but it's good for you to sort of like already be prepared for your CFII check ride. Basic med, don't confuse basic med with special issuance, because that's like two completely separate things. Also, you can never say that basic med is for people who can't get a medical, because for you to get a basic med, you need to have been issued anything above a class 3. So if you can't get any of those, you can never fly. But if you can get a class 3, then you can go and do the basic med.
After 2006.
After 2006, not before. Okay. What else? Is there any questions that you have? Anything that you want clarified?
No, I think that was the only things I really wrote down was the basic med, where you can log an instrument approach for IFR.
So only after you cross the final approach fix. I sent you a link directly to your phone because they did ask the FAA to clarify that. So if you are in IMC all the way to the final approach fix, and only after you cross the final approach fix that you are in visual, you can log that as your approach.
Cool. Yeah, and then that's an advisory circular.
Or something, I'm assuming. Or
Yeah.
okay, and then showing where the VOT and VOR ground checks are performed. I'll figure that out with ForeFlight. Know where the records are kept on an aircraft. Just make sure I know all the references, the actual physical items. Modifying my route, and the small like D and C on the approach chart, and then obviously just
Brief up on weather.
Okay. Closing your flight plan, you know about that as well?
Yeah,
Oh,
so at a controlled airport.
they'll close it for you upon landing. And then if it's not a controlled airport, then I have to call the flight service station or RCO and let them know that I'm on the ground.
Okay, what about getting clearance?
I can pick up a clearance in the air. I can pick up a clearance on the ground. There's multiple ways of doing it. I can call the flight service station as on the ground. I can also call the controlling ATC facility on the ground. My most recent interview I did with the TRACON controller, and we went over all of that.
You have the foreign, right?
Yeah.
I go to page 793, and there was something that I point out to the DP, and not even he knew about it. So that's actually pretty cool for you to get your clearance. There's actually a hotline.
I'm trying to.
Where top, bottom, left, right, expect.
Yeah, there's a number there. So that's the hotline for you to get a clearance. I used it before. So when you call these guys, they'll go and tell you, like, you say, hey, I'm here and I want to pick up a clearance. They're like, okay, here's the number. So basically they work like as a directory. They're like, you gotta call this number and they'll clear for you, and they can transfer you to the
What's the number? I'm not seeing it.
Are you on page 793 on the far end?
Yeah. 5-2-7.
523, right there. 523 IFR clearance of uncontrolled airports. And then you have A, B, and C. On C, except Alaska, pilots may also contact flight service dedicated clearance delivery hotline.
Which part are you looking under?
Right here.
Oh, bottom.
Right in the bottom.
My page is different. You're in 5. I'm 5-2-7 right now.
Oh, 5-2-3. 793. That's the page on mine.
I'm 790 for mine.
You know, how are you feeling about hypoxia and things like that?
Good. You got the 5
different types and how they affect people in flights. It's good to get a carbon monoxide indicator as well. I don't see where your reference is, but
5-2. I just 5-2-3 is. I have the 2019 far end, so I have the 2021.
Okay, it's the 2020.
Yeah.
So, let me see if I can find online. I'll send it to you. But there's a hotline.
I'll write the
the
reference down because I got to get the 2021 anyways. So 5-2-3. Cool. Yeah, hypoxia and anemic hypoxia and all that good stuff. It's when blood gets saturated.
So like you're good. Just like don't overthink. Don't go too deep into like regulations. Like it's this, that number. Like yeah, for like your commercial and CFI, like go for it. Just like don't try to put yourself into a position that may compromise you. You know, it's like just be safe. Like in that term of like not going too deep into it. Weather, make sure that you know like all of those little symbols. Try to explain everything as much as you can before you go and try to reference something. You know, usually the more that you start progressing towards your check rides, the less you're able to use reference material. So just get into that habit because you're gonna go for a commercial straight up after that.
Yeah,
Probably gonna do an accelerated one.
You're good, man. You're gonna be fine. It's like
Yeah, I was actually good today because it made me realize like because I didn't know because I've only done studying by myself for the past 6-7 months that I've been just kind of here and there doing studying and all that, just building cash. And so this was kind of like a good just to see where I'm at, and I'm gonna do like probably 3 to 4 more of these with other CFIs and maybe a DP or something. But yeah, I was gonna do a bunch of these and just see where I'm at. But this is a good judge for me. Only got 3 or 4 things I was kind of iffy on. I knew the general premise of it, but I wasn't like set in stone. So not bad for me.
yeah, and then just start thinking about like your different type of classes of airspace and etc. So if you take off from a class Golf airspace, that you need to be in VFR before you can. When you take off, you cannot be taking off below VFR minimums.
Well,
It depends on what airspace you're in. You can take off in class Golf airspace Part 91 with 0 visibility, but it's not smart.
It's fucked up. That's the whole thing, like how some DPs they will test you on 0-0. But I think it's the most stupid thing ever. I never learned how to do a 0-0 takeoff. Even my DP is completely against it because his whole belief is like, if airlines and medvac can't do it, why are you gonna do it?
Yeah.
It's really stupid, And yeah, did you practice ever? 0-0?
I've never done 0-0. No.
Yeah, man, don't. If you ask you about it, it's like, why would I? 0-0 means you can't even see the taxiway in front of you.
Yeah, just
Focusing on that turn coordinator, keeping it level.
All right, man. So if you have any other questions or anything like that, just let me know.